Sometimes the people we raise become strangers we no longer recognize. I'm Margaret, and I'm 73 years old. For decades, I believed I'd raised a good man, a man of honor, a man of character, but 3 years ago, I discovered something about my son that shattered everything I thought I knew about him. What he did to his dying wife didn't just break my heart, it changed the course of our entire family forever. This is the story of how I had to make the hardest decision a mother can make, and why sometimes love means letting go. It was a Tuesday afternoon in March when my daughter-in-law Sarah called me. And I knew immediately something was terribly wrong. Her voice was small, broken like a child trying to be brave. "Mom, Margaret," she whispered. I could hear her struggling to breathe. "I need to tell you something." Sarah had been battling stage 4 breast cancer for 8 months. My son Derek, her husband of 12 years, had promised to stand by her side through everything. I'd raised him to be better than his father, who'd walked out on us when Derek was just 7. I'd worked 2 jobs, sacrificed everything to teach him about loyalty, about what it means to truly love someone. "What is it, sweetheart?" I asked, my hands already trembling. "Derek's been leaving me alone," she said, "every night this week. He says he's going to work late or meeting clients. But Margaret, I found receipts in his jacket. He's been going to bars, to restaurants, expensive places." My stomach dropped. "Maybe there's an explanation." "There's more," she interrupted, and I heard her crying now. "His co-worker Melissa called the house by mistake yesterday. She thought she was calling Derek's cell. She said something about last night being amazing and she'd see him again Friday. I felt like someone had punched me in the chest. This couldn't be my Derek. Not the little boy who used to bring me flowers from the neighbor's garden. Not the teenager who'd promised his dying grandmother he'd always take care of his family. Where is he now?" I asked. "I don't know," Sarah sobbed. "He left an hour ago. Said he had to run errands." "Margaret, I'm so sick. I can barely get out of bed. The chemo is destroying me, and I'm here alone. I'm scared." I told her I was coming over immediately. I lived 40 minutes away in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and I broke every speed limit getting to their house in the suburbs. When I arrived, I used my key to let myself in. The house was dark except for the bedroom light upstairs. I found Sarah in bed, looking so thin I barely recognized her. She'd always been this vibrant, beautiful woman, a kindergarten teacher who lit up every room. Now she was a shadow, her skin pale, her beautiful auburn hair gone from the chemotherapy. She showed me everything: credit card statements Derek had hidden in his office drawer, charges at fancy steakhouses, wine bars, hotels, text messages on an old phone he'd forgotten about, conversations with at least 3 different women: Melissa from work, a woman named Jennifer he'd met at the gym, and someone called Candy whose messages made me physically ill. One text from just 2 days ago read, "Can't wait to see you tonight. My wife's asleep anyway. She won't even notice I'm gone." I sat on the edge of Sarah's bed, holding her frail hand, and I made a decision. My son had become someone I didn't know, someone I couldn't protect anymore, and Sarah, this beautiful soul, who'd brought so much joy to our family, needed protection from him. "I'm going to fix this," I told her. "I promise you, this ends now." I waited for Derek in their living room like a coiled spring. Every minute that passed made me angrier. This was my son, the boy I'd raised alone, the man I'd been so proud of, and here he was, treating his dying wife like she was an inconvenience. It was almost 11 o'clock when I heard his car pull into the driveway. He walked in whistling. When he saw me sitting there with all the lights on, he jumped. "Mom, what are you doing here?" He looked guilty already, his eyes darting around. "Sit down, Derek," I said. My voice was calm, but inside I was screaming. "Is Sarah okay? Did something happen?" He moved toward the stairs. "Don't you dare," I said, standing up. Don't you dare pretend you care about her now. He froze. What are you talking about? I threw the credit card statements at his feet, then the printed text messages, then the receipts Sarah had found. They scattered across the floor like evidence in a crime scene. Your wife is upstairs dying, I said, my voice shaking now. She weighs 98 pounds. She can't keep food down. She's terrified of dying alone, and you're out with other women, multiple women. Derek's face went white. He opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again. Mum, it's not what you think. Don't lie to me, I shouted. I read the messages. Derek. My wife's asleep anyway. She won't notice I'm gone. You said that about Sarah, about the woman who's given you 12 years of her life. He slumped onto the couch, his head in his hands. You don't understand what it's been like. Explain it to me then, I said, sitting across from him. Explain to me how the man I raised could do this. And he did. God help me. He tried to justify it. She's not the same person anymore, Mom, he said, not even looking at me. She's sick all the time. She can't do anything. No energy. No interest in anything. The house is depressing. I can't even remember the last time we had a normal conversation. That wasn't about doctors or medications or death. She has cancer, I screamed. She's fighting for her life. I know that, he yelled back. Don't you think I know that? But I'm drowning too. I'm 38 years old. And my life has become nothing but hospital visits and insurance paperwork. And watching someone I love waste away. I needed to feel normal again. I needed to feel alive. I stared at this stranger wearing my son's face. So you decided to betray her while she's at her most vulnerable. I didn't mean for it to happen, he said quietly. Melissa from work. She was just nice to me. She listened. We went for coffee once, and it felt good to talk to someone who wasn't sick. Then Jennifer at the gym, she made me laugh. I forgot what laughing felt like. And Candy, I asked coldly, what did Candy do? Make you forget you had a wife at home who can barely lift her head off the pillow. He flinched. That was a mistake. I was drunk. It only happened twice. I stood up, grabbed my purse, and headed for the door. Where are you going? Derek asked, panic in his voice now. I'm going upstairs to pack Sarah's things, I said. She's coming to live with me. You can't do that. Watch me. The next morning, I moved Sarah into my house. My neighbor Tom helped me carry her things, her medications, her medical equipment, the few clothes that still fit her shrinking frame. Derek didn't try to stop us. He just stood in the doorway, looking lost and pathetic. Sarah cried the whole drive to my house. Not because she was leaving, because she felt like she'd failed. I should have been enough, she kept saying. Even sick, I should have been enough for him to stay faithful. Stop that right now. I told her firmly, this is not your fault. You didn't fail anyone. He failed you. He failed his vows. He failed as a husband and as a man. I set her up in my guest room, the one that got morning sunlight. I called her oncologist and transferred all her care to the hospital near my house. I learned how to manage her medications, how to help her when the nausea got bad, how to change her PICC line dressing. My daughter Rachel flew in from Seattle within 2 days when she found out what Derek had done. She was furious in a way I'd never seen before. I always knew he was selfish, she said. But this, Mom, how could you raise someone capable of this? That question haunted me. How had I failed? Where had I gone wrong? I taught him about commitment, about honor, about treating people with respect. But somewhere along the way, my lessons hadn't stuck. Or maybe he'd just chosen to ignore them when things got difficult. Derek called every day that first week. I didn't answer. He sent flowers, I threw them away. He sent letters apologizing, explaining, begging. I burned them in my fireplace without reading them past the first line. Sarah's condition got worse. The cancer was spreading faster now, and Her doctors said it was just a matter of time, weeks, maybe a month if we were lucky. I don't want to die angry, she told me one night. We were sitting in the living room. And she was wrapped in blankets even though it was warm. I don't want my last emotion to be hatred for Derek. You don't have to hate him, I said, but you don't owe him forgiveness either. Do you hate him? She asked. I thought about that. I hate what he did. I hate that he became someone I don't recognize, but he's still my son, and that makes it complicated. He wants to see me, she said. He's been texting my phone, says he needs to apologize in person. Absolutely not, I said immediately. You don't need that stress, Margaret. She interrupted gently. I'm dying, if there's going to be any closure, it needs to happen soon. I didn't want to allow it. Every protective instinct in my body screamed against it. But Sarah was right, time was running out, so against my better judgment, I agreed Derek could visit, once. For 30 minutes, and I would be there the entire time. Derek arrived at my house on a Saturday morning, looking terrible. He'd lost weight, his eyes were bloodshot, and he hadn't shaved in days. Good, I thought savagely. Let him suffer a fraction of what Sarah's suffering. I let him in but didn't offer him coffee or ask him to sit. 30 minutes, I said. You say what you need to say, and then you leave. Sarah was sitting in the recliner by the window, an Afghan across her lap. She looked so small, so fragile. Derek actually gasped when he saw her. Sarah, he whispered, dropping to his knees beside her chair. Oh God, Sarah. Hello, Derek, she said quietly. Her voice was weak but steady. I'm so sorry, he said, and he was crying now, ugly, gulping sobs. I'm so sorry for everything. I was selfish and cruel, and you didn't deserve any of it. Sarah just watched him, her expression unreadable. I stood by the door, arms crossed, ready to throw him out if he upset her too much. Why did you do it? She asked. That's what I need to understand. Why? Derek wiped his face with his sleeve. I was scared, he said. I was terrified of losing you, and instead of dealing with that fear, I ran from it. Every time I looked at you getting sicker, I felt helpless. I couldn't fix it. I couldn't make you better, and I couldn't handle feeling that powerless. So you found women who made you feel powerful instead, Sarah said. Yes, he admitted. They made me feel like I wasn't failing, like I wasn't watching my whole life fall apart. It was selfish and stupid and wrong. Were you in love with any of them? She asked. No, Derek said quickly. No, never. It wasn't about love. It was about escape. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that shocked us both. I knew. Derek's head snapped up. What? I knew before I called your mother, Sarah said. I'd known for weeks, maybe even months, the late nights, the distance between us, the way you couldn't look me in the eye anymore. I just didn't want to believe it. Why didn't you say something? He asked. Because I was hoping I was wrong, she said sadly, and because part of me understood, not forgave, understood. I know I'm not easy to be around anymore. I know watching me die is killing you too. That's not an excuse, Derek started. No, it's not, she agreed. But it's context. Derek, you broke my heart. You betrayed me when I needed you most. But I also know you're not entirely the monster your mother thinks you are. I wanted to argue, but I kept quiet. This was Sarah's moment. You made a terrible choice, Sarah continued. Actually, you made dozens of terrible choices. And I'll die knowing my husband wasn't faithful to me. That's something I'll carry to whatever comes next. Derek was sobbing openly now. I would do anything to take it back. But you can't, Sarah said simply. That's what you need to understand, Derek. Some things can't be fixed. Some betrayals are permanent. Then she looked at me. Margaret, can I have a few minutes alone with Derek? Every instinct screamed no, but I respected Sarah enough to honor her request. 5 minutes, I said sternly. I'll be right outside. I stepped out onto the porch, my heart pounding. I didn't know what Sarah was going to say. But I trusted her judgment even if I didn't trust my son anymore. 10 minutes later, Derek emerged from the house looking shattered. He walked past me without a word, got in his car, and drove away. I hurried back inside to find Sarah exhausted but calm. "What did you say to him?" I asked. Sarah smiled sadly. I told him the truth. The whole truth, which is she took a deep breath. I told him that I forgive him for the affairs, not because he deserves forgiveness, but because I refuse to die consumed by hatred. Life's too short, especially mine. I sat down across from her, stunned. But she continued, "I also told him that forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. I forgave him for my own peace, not for his benefit, and I told him that he needs to live with what he's done. Really live with it, and become a better person. Because of it, that's very mature of you," I said carefully. "There's more," Sarah said. I told him about the baby. My blood ran cold. "What baby?" Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "I was pregnant when I was diagnosed. 8 weeks. The doctors said I could try to carry the baby while doing modified treatment. But my chances of survival would drop significantly. Or I could terminate and focus entirely on fighting the cancer, which would give me better odds." "Sarah," I whispered, "you never told us." "I chose the treatment," she said. "I chose to try to live." And Derek agreed it was the right choice. We weren't ready for a baby, and with the cancer, it felt impossible. But Margaret, I think about that baby every single day. I wonder if it was a boy or a girl. I wonder what they would have looked like. "Does Derek think about it?" I asked. "I don't know," she said. "We never talked about it after the termination. It was too painful. But I told him today that part of why his betrayal hurt so much is because I gave up our child to try to survive, to try to have a future with him. And while I was making that sacrifice, he was out with other women. I felt my hatred for my son crystallize into something hard and permanent. This wasn't just about infidelity anymore. This was about a profound betrayal of trust and sacrifice. He didn't know what to say. Sarah continued. He just cried. And then I told him that I want him to move on after I'm gone. Find someone else, have children, build a life. But I made him promise to remember me truthfully, not as a saint, but as a real person who loved him and whom he failed. 2 weeks later, Sarah took a turn for the worse. She developed pneumonia on top of everything else, and her body couldn't fight anymore. The hospice nurse said it would be days now, maybe hours. I called Derek. Whatever my feelings, Sarah deserved to have him there if she wanted him, and despite everything, she did. He arrived within the hour and didn't leave her side. My daughter, Rachel, came too, and we all sat in that guest room, watching Sarah slip away from us. The night before she died, Sarah woke up lucid for a brief moment. She looked at Derek, squeezed his hand weakly, and whispered, "Be better." Those were her last words to him. Be better. She passed away the next morning, with me holding one hand and Derek holding the other. She was 36 years old. Sarah's funeral was packed. She touched so many lives as a teacher, as a friend, as a daughter. Her parents flew in from Oregon. They divorced when Sarah was young. But they both came. They knew about Derek's infidelity. Sarah had told her mother everything. At the service, Derek tried to give a eulogy. He got 3 sentences in before breaking down completely and having to sit down. Sarah's father gave him a look of pure contempt. I didn't blame him. After the service, there was a reception at the funeral home. People shared stories about Sarah, her kindness, her humor, her dedication to her students. One of her fellow teachers spoke about how Sarah had continued lesson planning from her hospital bed, determined to make sure her class wouldn't fall behind. Derek stood in the corner alone, and I watched person after person deliberately avoid him. The word had gotten out. People knew what he'd done. This was a small community, and Sarah's friends had made sure everyone understood exactly what kind of man Derek was. At one point, Sarah's father approached me. His name was Robert, and he was a retired Marine, tough as nails but with a soft heart for his daughter, Margaret. He said formally, "I want you to know that I don't blame you for Derek's actions. You're a good woman who tried her best." "Thank you, Robert," I said, my throat tight. "But I need you to understand something," he continued, his voice low and hard. "Your son killed my daughter just as surely as the cancer did, the stress, the betrayal. The heartbreak, it all weakened her. She'd given up by the end. I could see it in her eyes. I wanted to argue, to defend Derek, but I couldn't, because Robert was right. Maybe Derek hadn't physically harmed Sarah, but he'd destroyed her spirit when she needed it most. I understand." I whispered. After the funeral, I thought Derek might reach out, might want to talk about Sarah or the guilt he must be carrying. But he didn't. He disappeared into his house and didn't answer calls from me or Rachel. 3 days after the funeral, I got a call from Derek's best friend, Marcus Mrs. Patterson. He said, "I'm worried about Derek. He's not answering his door or his phone. His car's been in the same spot for days. Can you come check on him?" My heart sank. Whatever Derek had done, he was still my son. Rachel and I drove to his house immediately. We had to get the landlord to let us in. We found Derek passed out drunk on the couch, surrounded by empty bottles. The house was a disaster, dirty dishes everywhere, trash overflowing, windows covered with sheets. It smelled like despair. We cleaned him up, got him showered and fed. He was a mess and shaven, hollow-eyed, barely coherent. "I can't do this, Mom," he mumbled. "I can't live with what I did." "You don't have a choice," I said firmly. "You're alive. Derek, Sarah isn't. You owe it to her memory to do exactly what she asked. Be better." But he wasn't better. Over the next few months, Derek spiraled. He lost his job for not showing up. He stopped paying his bills. He drank constantly. And that's when I made the decision that would destroy our relationship forever. I cut him off completely. No more money. No more rescuing him. No more phone calls checking on him. I told him that until he took responsibility for his life and actually became the person Sarah had asked him to be, he was not welcome in my home. All my life, Rachel supported my decision, though it hurt her too. "He needs to hit rock bottom," she said, "and we can't keep catching him before he does." Derek was furious. He showed up at my house screaming, saying I was abandoning him when he needed me most, that I was a terrible mother, that I was choosing a dead woman over my own son. "I'm choosing the person Sarah believed you could become," I told him through my locked door. "When you become that person, we can talk." He sent horrible text messages. He told me he hoped I died alone. He said he never wanted to see me again. He blamed me for everything, for Sarah's death, for his problems, for his failures. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. Every maternal instinct screamed at me to help him, to save him like I'd always saved him. But I realized that's exactly what had gone wrong. I'd always saved him from consequences, from discomfort, from facing his own failures. I'd raised a boy who thought love meant never having to face the results of his actions. And Sarah had paid the price for my overprotective parenting. 6 months went by with no contact. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Derek had moved to a smaller apartment, that he'd taken a job at a warehouse, that he'd stopped drinking. But I didn't reach out. I waited. Then, on what would have been Sarah's 37th birthday, I got a letter from Derek, a real letter, handwritten on notebook paper. "Mom, I'm writing this from an AA meeting. It's my 90th day sober. I know you probably don't believe me, and I don't blame you. I've spent the last 6 months thinking about everything, about Sarah, about who I became, about how I got here, and I've realized you were right to cut me off. I needed to fall completely before I could start climbing back up. I got a therapist, a real one, not just someone to complain to. We've been working through why I made the choices I made. It turns out I have a lot of issues with fear and control that I never dealt with. That's not an excuse, it's just an explanation. I also started volunteering at a cancer support center. I help families navigate insurance and paperwork, the stuff I learned when Sarah was sick. It's my way of trying to give back, to make something good come from all the knowledge I gained during the worst time of my life. I know I destroyed our relationship. I know I destroyed Sarah. I know I can't undo any of it, but I'm trying to do what she asks. I'm trying to be better. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect you to want me in your life again. I just wanted you to know that I heard you. I finally heard you. Your son, Derek, I read that letter 10 times. I cried. I felt angry and proud and sad all at once. Rachel wanted to know if I was going to respond. I don't know yet. I told her honestly. 3 months later, I did respond. I sent Derek a short email. I'm proud that you're working on yourself. Keep going. That's what Sarah would want. We've rebuilt a relationship slowly over the past 2 years. It's not what it was before. It will never be what it was before. I can't look at him without thinking about Sarah in that hospital bed, without remembering her pain. But he has changed. He's been sober for over 2 years now. He volunteers 20 hours a week at the cancer center. He's back in school, studying to be a social worker specializing in grief counseling. He's seeing a woman named Patricia, widow, who lost her husband to leukemia. She knows Derek's whole story, and she's helping him become a better man. Last month, Derek asked if he could put flowers on Sarah's grave with me. We stood there together in silence. Looking at her headstone, I think about her every day. He said quietly about who I was and who she deserved. Good, I said. Never stop thinking about that. I won't, he promised. Mom, I know I don't deserve it. But thank you for forcing me to face myself. Sarah asked me to be better, but you made me do the work. We go to Sarah's grave together every month now. It's our way of honoring her memory, not by pretending Derek's betrayal never happened, but by acknowledging it and choosing to let it make us better people. I think about Sarah all the time. I wonder what she'd think of Derek now. I hope she'd see that her final wish, be better, wasn't wasted. I hope she'd know that even in death, her love was strong enough to change someone fundamentally. Sometimes, being a mother means letting your child fall. Sometimes it means making them face consequences you desperately want to protect them from. And sometimes, the greatest gift you can give your child is refusing to enable their worst self, even when it breaks both your hearts. Derek isn't the man I thought I raised, but he's working every day to become the man Sarah believed he could be, and maybe, in the end, that's the best any of us can hope for, the chance to be better than we were, even if we can never undo our worst mistakes. Sarah deserved so much more than what Derek gave her, but her legacy, her final words, her final wish might just save him. And in some small way, that helps me believe her death wasn't entirely senseless. It's not forgiveness, not really. It's something more complicated than that. It's acceptance that people are flawed. That betrayal leaves permanent scars, but that change is still possible if we're brave enough to demand it. Derek will spend the rest of his life living with what he did, and honestly, that's exactly what he should do, not wallowing in it, but carrying it with him, letting it push him to be kinder, more faithful, more present for the people who need him. That's what Sarah asked for. That's what I'm making sure happens, and that's the only justice a dead woman can get, if you or someone you know is caring for a loved one with cancer. Please know you're not alone. There are resources and support groups available, and if you're facing betrayal or struggling with caregiving, please reach out for help. You deserve support too. This is based on a true story. though names and some details have been changed to protect privacy. Thank you for watching.